Welcome back to the channel, Rare Coins History. If you're a coin collector, a history buff, or just someone curious about what might be hiding inside your change jar, then you've landed on the right video. Because today, we're uncovering the story behind a small, brown, old-looking coin that could very well be a hidden treasure, the 1945 Lincoln Wheat Penny. Now don't be fooled by its worn-out color or its common appearance. This coin has a deep history, intriguing mint variations, and some rare, high-value surprises that have made collectors go absolutely wild over the years. So grab your coin jar, dig through that old shoebox in the attic, and get comfortable, because what you're about to learn might just turn a humble 1-cent coin into something worth thousands, maybe more. Let's begin with a little journey back in time. The year is 1945. World War II has just ended. The Allied forces have declared victory, and there's a wave of hope, recovery, and rebuilding sweeping across the globe. Soldiers are coming home, factories are shifting from wartime production to peacetime goods, and families across America are finally looking forward to a better future. But while all of this is happening, something small, yet significant, is quietly being produced at the U.S. Mint. The 1945 Lincoln Wheat Penny. It may seem like just another coin, but this tiny artifact is actually a window into the past. Made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, the 1945 penny marked the return of a more traditional metal composition. Just a few years earlier, in 1943, the mint had switched to steel pennies to save copper for the war effort. Those infamous silver-colored cents are now famous in their own right. But by 1945, copper was back, and with it came the familiar look and feel of the classic Lincoln Wheat Penny. Let's talk about design. On the front of the coin, also called the obverse, we see a side profile of President Abraham Lincoln, facing right. Above him, the words, "In God We Trust." To the left, the word, "Liberty." And to the right, the date, 1945, with the all-important mint mark right below the year. Turn the coin over, and you'll find the reverse. Two stylized wheat ears arching along the left and right edges, surrounding the bold words, 1 cent, in the center. Above that, United States of America. And just above it all, the Latin motto, E pluribus unum. This reverse design, often referred to as the wheat reverse or wheat ears, is a classic, loved by collectors for its simplicity and history. It was used from 1909 to 1958 before being replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design. But let's get into the juicy details, the mint marks and varieties of the 1945 penny. The 1945 wheat penny was minted in 3 different locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, mint mark D; San Francisco, mint mark S. Each mint produced a huge number of pennies that year. In fact, the U.S. Mint was pumping out coins at an incredible pace to meet the growing economic demands of post-war America. But even though these pennies were made in the hundreds of millions, not all of them were created equal. Most of the 1945 pennies you'll find in circulation today are worn, discolored, or corroded. They've been through decades of pockets, wallets, and weather. But if you find one in mint condition, known in the collecting world as uncirculated or mint state, that's where the value begins to climb. But even beyond condition, what really sends the price skyrocketing are errors and unusual varieties, and 1945 had some spectacular ones. Let's talk about them. First up, double die errors. These are some of the most sought-after coin mistakes in the hobby. A double die happens when the coin's design is stamped more than once, but just slightly misaligned. The result? Letters, numbers, or features on the coin that appear to be duplicated, like a drop shadow effect. Some 1945 pennies, particularly those from the San Francisco Mint, have shown strong doubling on the words, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty." These double dies are rare, and when combined with great condition, they can command thousands at auction. Next, off-center strikes. These occur when the coin isn't properly centered during the strike, causing the design to appear shifted or partially missing. Depending on how dramatic the off-center strike is, these can be extremely valuable. The more off-center the strike, while still showing the full date and mint mark, the better. And then we have die cracks, cuds, and clipped planchets, technical terms for errors that involve breaks in the dies, missing parts of the coin rim, or even coins that were cut from the wrong blanks. While not as famous as double dies, these errors are still prized among error coin collectors. Now here's a surprising twist that very few people know. Foreign planchet errors. There are rumors, and a few verified examples, of 1945 pennies that were struck on planchets meant for foreign coins. These coins may appear thinner, weigh differently, or even ring at a different tone when dropped. Because the mint occasionally struck coins for foreign governments, mix-ups like this did happen. And when they're discovered today, they're like finding a diamond in the rough. So, what should you be looking for in a 1945 wheat penny? Here's your checklist. Check the mint mark. Is it from Philadelphia? No mint mark. Denver, D, or San Francisco, S. Some errors are specific to certain mints. Check the condition. If your coin is shiny, scratch-free, and still shows its original luster, it may be a mint state coin. Look for errors. Doubling, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and die cracks are all signs of a valuable coin. Weigh your coin. A normal 1945 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. Anything too far off could indicate something unusual. Get it graded. If you think you found a gem, send it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. A certified coin will always fetch a higher price. And now, after all this talk of mint marks, metal compositions, and minting errors, it's time for the moment you've been waiting for, because while most 1945 wheat pennies are worth a few cents, or a few dollars in great condition, there's one particular coin that shocked the numismatic world when it surfaced. It was a 1945 penny struck with a combination of exceptional features, perfect condition, a rare error, and historical significance. This coin was authenticated, professionally graded at a near-perfect level, and auctioned to an eager crowd of collectors who knew exactly what they were looking at. And when the bidding was over, this single, humble Lincoln wheat penny, struck in 1945, sold for a jaw-dropping $150,000. Yes. You heard that right. $150,000 for a coin that started life as a single copper cent, lost among millions, but ended up being a record-breaking piece of American history. Today, we're talking about a classic American coin that's been around for decades, but might still be hiding in plain sight, the 1953 Lincoln wheat penny. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. 1953? That's not even that old. But stay with me, because this penny is anything but boring. It holds secrets. It holds history. And in some rare cases, it holds the power to completely change your life. Yes, really. By the time we reach the end of this video, you'll know how to tell the difference between a common 1953 wheat penny, and one that could be worth a fortune. So grab your magnifying glass, pull out your coin jar, and settle in. This is going to be a deep dive into one of America's most overlooked numismatic gems. Let's start with a bit of historical backdrop, because understanding the story behind a coin is just as important as knowing its market value. The year is 1953. Dwight D. Eisenhower is President of the United States. America is at the height of the post-World War II boom. Families are moving to the suburbs. Black and white TVs are beaming into homes across the country. And the U.S. Mint is churning out coins that will serve a growing, thriving economy. Amidst all this change and growth, the humble penny remained a constant, reliable, familiar, and quietly evolving. Enter the 1953 Lincoln wheat cent, still made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. The penny in 1953 held a certain weight and feel that collectors cherish even today. Its composition gave it that rich, reddish-brown hue when it was freshly minted, and unlike today's lighter zinc-based pennies, it had a solid, lasting presence. Now let's talk design. On the obverse, also known as the front, you'll see a side profile of Abraham Lincoln, facing right. Above his head, the iconic motto, "In God We Trust." To the left, the word "Liberty," and to the right, the date, 1953, with the mint mark right below it. Flip the coin over, and you're greeted by a symbol of American agriculture and prosperity, two stylized wheat stalks arching along the left and right edges of the reverse side, encircling the words, 1 cent, in bold lettering. Above that, United States of America. And above that, the timeless phrase, E pluribus unum. This wheat reverse design had been in use since 1909, celebrating Lincoln's centennial birthday, and it would continue until 1958 when it was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial Design. So what makes the 1953 penny special? First, let's look at mint marks, because they tell us where your penny was made, and this matters a lot more than most people realize. In 1953, the Lincoln wheat penny was minted in 3 different U.S. mint locations: Philadelphia Mint, no mint mark; Denver Mint, mint mark D; San Francisco Mint, mint mark S. Philadelphia struck the most coins that year, meaning 1953 no mint mark pennies are the most common. Denver came in second, while San Francisco produced the fewest, making the 1953 S the most sought after of the 3 for basic collectors. But here's where things get really interesting. It's not just about which mint made your penny. It's about how it was made, because some of the most valuable 1953 pennies aren't rare because of the mint mark. They're rare because of errors, yes, minting errors, those beautiful, accidental quirks that turn an ordinary coin into a collector's dream. Let's break down the major types of errors and what you should be watching for. First up, double dies. A double die happens when the die, the metal stamp used to strike the coin, is imprinted twice slightly out of alignment. This results in visible doubling of letters and numbers. On a 1953 wheat penny, doubling is most commonly spotted in the words, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty," and sometimes in the date. Collectors love double dies because they're dramatic. They're visible. And most importantly, they're rare. If you find a clean 1953 double die penny, especially in high grade, you could be looking at serious money. Next, off-center strikes. These are exactly what they sound like. The coin was struck off-center, leaving part of the design missing. Some show just a sliver of Lincoln's bust, while others are 30%, 40%, even 60% off. The sweet spot for collectors is when the coin is off-center but still shows the full date and mint mark. Then there are BAE errors. This is a fun one unique to Lincoln cents. Sometimes a small die chip forms between the B and E in Liberty, making it look like there's an extra letter I between them, hence the name BIE. While these are smaller and more subtle than double dies, they're still collectible, especially among Lincoln cent enthusiasts. We also can't forget clipped planchets, lamination errors, and struck-through debris, all of which can make a penny unique and valuable depending on how dramatic and rare the flaw is. But even if your 1953 penny doesn't have a visible error, its condition can still make it incredibly valuable. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect mint state. Coin with no blemishes, nicks, or wear. A well-circulated 1953 penny might only be worth a few cents, but an uncirculated, high-grade coin that still gleams like it just came off the press? That can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. So let's say you found a 1953 wheat penny. What should you do next? Here's your checklist. Check the mint mark. Is it from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco? The S mint mark usually carries more value. Examine the condition. Does your penny still have its original luster? Are the details sharp and crisp? No major scratches or damage. Look for errors. Use a magnifying glass. Check "In God We Trust," Liberty, and the date for doubling. Look for off-center strikes, weird shapes, extra bumps, or letters. Weigh it. A normal 1953 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it's way off, you may have something very unusual. Get it graded. If you believe your coin is something special, don't sell it raw. Send it to PCGS or NGC and get it certified. That grading could make all the difference. And now, it's time that you've waited patiently. We've traveled through history. We've talked about mint marks, doubling, planchets, and hidden errors. So what's the real-world value of a 1953 Lincoln wheat penny? Well, most are worth a few cents. Some, especially high-grade Denver or San Francisco issues, can reach into the hundreds, but then there's that penny, the one that checks all the boxes: pristine condition, rare mint mark, and an unmistakable double DIE. It was professionally graded. It was authenticated by one of the most trusted grading services in the world. It was auctioned at a major numismatic event, and when the gavel fell, that 1953 wheat penny, just 1 cent in face value, sold for an astonishing $130,000. That's right, 100. $30,000 for a single coin that probably passed through dozens of hands, sat in a drawer for years, and then finally, was discovered by someone who knew what to look for. Could that be you? It's possible. Today, we're peeling back the layers of time to explore a coin that many people overlook, yet it holds more mystery, history, and value than you'd ever imagine. That's right, we're diving deep into the story of the 1939 Lincoln wheat penny. Now at first glance, it might look like just another brown penny, nothing fancy, nothing special. But if you've got one of these, or if you ever stumble upon one in an old coin jar, tucked inside a grandparent's collection, or hiding in your change drawer, you'll definitely want to take a much closer look, because this coin has some incredible secrets, and in certain rare cases, it has made people jaw drop, hearts race, auction hall silence kind of rich. Let's start by taking a trip back in time to understand the world this coin was born into. The year was 1939. The world was changing rapidly. Just months before, Germany had invaded Poland, launching the globe into the early days of World War II. The United States, still recovering from the Great Depression, hadn't yet entered the war, but tensions were rising. President Franklin D. Roosevelt was leading the nation through one of its most challenging periods. In this time of uncertainty and transformation, American industry was preparing for wartime. Materials were being conserved. The economy was slowly reviving. And through it all, the United States Mint was doing what it had always done, producing coins that would circulate through every corner of the country, from corner stores in New York City to rural farms in the Midwest, and among those coins was the 1939 Lincoln wheat cent a penny. Just 1 cent. But it was more than just spare change, it was a snapshot of American life, pressed into metal. Now, let's take a close look at the design. On the front, also known as the obverse, you'll see the familiar, stoic profile of President Abraham Lincoln, facing right. This design had been in use since 1909, when it was introduced to commemorate Lincoln's 100th birthday. The inscription, "In God We Trust," curves across the top, Liberty sits to the left of Lincoln's portrait, and the date, 1939, is on the right. Just below the date, you might find something very important, a mint mark. A tiny letter that tells you exactly where this coin was minted. Flip the coin over to the reverse, and you're greeted by the iconic wheat ears design, 2 curved stalks of wheat bordering the words, 1 cent, and United States of America. At the very top, in small but powerful print, E Pluribus Unum. This design, beloved by collectors, was in use from 1909 to 1958. It's one of the most recognizable and collectible styles in all of American coinage. Now, let's get into the technical side of things, because this is where it starts getting really interesting. In 1939, the Lincoln wheat penny was produced at 3 U.S. Mint facilities: Philadelphia Mint, which had no mint mark; Denver Mint, marked with a D; San Francisco Mint, marked with an S. Philadelphia produced the most coins that year, while San Francisco struck the fewest. So right off the bat, 1939's pennies tend to be more desirable among collectors, especially in high-grade condition, but even that's just the beginning, because not all 1939 pennies were made the same. Some carry hidden quirks, minting mistakes, or rare features that can take their value from cool old penny to life-changing treasure. Let's break down the key things you should be looking for if you've got a 1939 wheat penny. First, mint marks matter. As we said, Philadelphia coins have no mint mark, Denver has a D, and San Francisco has an S. All 3 are collectible, but 1939 D and 1939 S pennies in pristine condition are far rarer than their Philadelphia counterparts. The smaller mint runs in Denver and San Francisco make these issues scarcer, and therefore more valuable to collectors, especially in uncirculated grades. Next up, errors and varieties. Minting technology in the 1930s wasn't nearly as automated or precise as it is today. Mistakes happened. And those mistakes? They're gold mines for collectors. One of the most desirable errors in Lincoln wheat cents is the double die, when the coin's design is impressed twice, slightly off alignment, during the die creation process. For the 1939 penny, double die examples have been reported, especially in the lettering on the reverse, 1 cent and United States of America. If you spot heavy doubling, especially without a microscope, That could be a jackpot. Then there are off-center strikes. These are coins that were misaligned during the minting process. Some are just a little off, but others are dramatically shifted, sometimes 40%, 60%, or more. If your 1939 penny is off-center and still shows the full date and mint mark, congratulations, you might be holding something special. Another favorite among error collectors? BIE errors. On some 1939 Lincoln cents, a tiny vertical die crack appears between the B and E in Liberty, creating what looks like a small I wedged in there, hence the name BIE. These errors are quirky, collectible, and just rare enough to be worth something to the right buyer. Let's talk about one more type of oddity, planchet errors. These are mistakes that happen before the coin is even struck. If a blank planchet, the metal disc used to make the coin, was damaged, incomplete, or the wrong size, you could end up with a Lincoln penny that's thinner than usual, missing part of its edge, or struck on a foreign coin blank. These oddballs are rare, fascinating, and very collectible. Of course, error or not, the condition of your 1939 penny is just as important as its rarity. Coins are graded on a 70-point scale. The higher the grade, the better the condition, and the more valuable your coin becomes. A heavily circulated 1939 penny with scratches and worn detail might only be worth a few cents. But a high-grade, uncirculated 1939 wheat penny, with full luster and sharp details, can fetch serious money, even without an error. So here's what you should do if you find a 1939 penny in your possession. Check the date and mint mark. Is it from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco? If it's an S or a D, pay extra attention, examine for errors, look closely at the words, 1 cent, Liberty, and the date for signs of doubling or die cracks. Weigh it. A normal copper penny from this era should weigh about 3.11 grams. Anything wildly different could signal a planchet error. Check the condition. Is it clean? Sharp? Shiny? Has it been preserved well? If so, you could be looking at a high-grade coin. Consider professional grading. If you think your coin could be something special, send it to a trusted grading company like PCGS or NGC. A certified grade boosts your coin's credibility and value significantly. Now for the moment you've been waiting for. You've stuck with us through history, mint mark education, error breakdowns, and collector tips. But how much could a 1939 Lincoln wheat penny actually be worth? Well, most are worth a few cents in circulated condition. A few dollars in better shape. Maybe a few hundred if you've got a high-grade Denver or San Francisco issue, but every now and then, one coin emerges that blows everyone away. One 1939 penny, struck at the San Francisco Mint, featured a jaw-dropping off-center error combined with a crisp, nearly flawless strike in pristine condition. It was examined, authenticated, and graded by one of the top grading agencies in the world. And when it went to auction, the bids came in hot, because this wasn't just any coin, this was a piece of American history, frozen in time. A one-of-a-kind survivor with all the right traits, and when the hammer fell, that single 1939 Lincoln wheat penny sold for a staggering $140,000. Yes. You heard that right. $140,000 from a penny. Today's video is all about one of the most talked about and fascinating coins in American numismatics, the 1944 Lincoln wheat penny. That's right. A 1-cent coin, often passed off as pocket change, that just might be worth far more than you ever imagined. So don't blink. By the end of this video, you'll know why the 1944 wheat penny is on the radar of serious collectors, how to identify the truly rare versions of this coin, and how to tell if your old penny might be worth a life-changing sum. Now, let's rewind the clock for a moment. The year was 1944. The world was in turmoil. World War II was raging, and American forces were storming the beaches of Normandy. The war effort was in full swing. Steel was being used for tanks, planes, ships, and ammunition. Every resource was valuable. Every ounce of copper, zinc, and nickel was being rationed. Life back home was filled with ration stamps, war bonds, and blackouts. And through all of it, the U.S. Mint kept doing its job, producing the coins that kept America's economy moving. But coins from wartime weren't like those made in peaceful years. they carried the fingerprint of history. They were influenced by metal shortages, minting mistakes, and government experiments. And in 1944, something fascinating happened in the world of coins. Let's talk about the Lincoln Wheat Penny, the coin at the heart of today's story. This design had already been in circulation since 1909, when it was introduced to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person, and it quickly became a symbol of national pride. The front of the coin, or the obverse, shows a right-facing profile of Lincoln. Above his head, "In God We Trust." To the left, "Liberty." To the right, the date, 1944. And just beneath the date, you may see something very small, but very important, a mint mark. It could be a D, for Denver, an S, for San Francisco, or nothing at all, which means it was minted in Philadelphia. Now, flip the coin over, and you'll see the iconic wheat reverse, two stylized wheat ears curving up each side, framing the large words, 1 cent and United States of America. At the top, E pluribus unum. This design was used from 1909 to 1958, and it's beloved by collectors for its simplicity, its symbolism, and the sheer number of varieties it includes. But here's where things get really fascinating. During World War II, in 1943, the U.S. Mint made a major change. Because copper was needed for shell casings and other military materials, the penny was struck in zinc-coated steel. These steel cents had a shiny silver appearance and were extremely unusual. However, in 1944, the mint returned to using copper, but there was a catch: much of the copper used that year came from recycled shell casings recovered from battlefields. That's right, the 1944 pennies weren't just coins. They were literally forged from the remnants of war. These were sometimes called shell case cents, and they have a different composition than earlier copper pennies, roughly 95% copper and 5% zinc. This alone makes 1944 Lincoln Wheat pennies historically important, but there's more, because, even though the mint switched back to copper in 1944, a few 1943 steel blanks were accidentally left in the minting machines. That led to the creation of one of the most famous error coins of all time, the 1944 steel penny. These are among the rarest and most valuable Lincoln cents ever made. Only a handful exist, and if you've got one, even in poor condition, it could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. In pristine condition? You'll want to keep watching until the very end, but even if you don't have a 1944 steel cent, there's still plenty of value in other 1944 wheat pennies, especially if they were minted in Denver or San Francisco, or if they show rare mint errors. Let's break down what to look for. First up, mint marks. Point 1944, no mint mark, minted in Philadelphia. These are the most common but can still be valuable in top condition or with an error. Point 1944 D, minted in Denver. Some of these coins show doubling in the date or lettering. High-grade versions are highly desirable. Point 1944 S, minted in San Francisco. These had the lowest mintage among the three, and in uncirculated condition, they can command solid prices. Now, on to the real thrill of coin collecting, errors and varieties. Here are some of the most exciting and valuable ones for the 1944 wheat penny. 1. Double die errors. This is when a coin is struck with a die that has been impressed with the design twice, slightly offset. You might see doubling in the date, in the Liberty, or in the motto, "In God We Trust." These errors are popular and can be worth hundreds or thousands depending on condition. Point 2. Off-center strikes. A coin that wasn't centered properly during the strike. If it's 10 to 20% off-center and still shows the full date and mint mark, it could be worth big money. The more dramatic the misalignment, the higher the value. Point 3. Die cracks and cuds. Overused dies can develop cracks, which show up as raised lines on the coin. A cud is when a piece of the die breaks off, leaving a blob-like area on the coin. Both are collectible, especially when obvious and well-positioned. Point 4. Repunched mint marks, RPM. In 1944, mint marks were still hand-punched into the dies, which means some coins ended up with overlapping or misaligned mint marks. These RPMs are a hot item among collectors. Point 5. Wrong planchet errors. As we mentioned earlier, a few 1944 pennies were struck on leftover 1943 steel planchets. These rare errors are magnetic and look silver-colored instead of copper. If you find one, get it authenticated immediately. So what should you do if you have a 1944 penny? Here's your checklist. Step 1. Look for the mint mark. D and S are more desirable, especially in higher grades. Step 2. Check the color. A 1944 penny that's silver in color might be steel. Use a magnet. If it sticks, it might be the ultra-rare version. Step 3. Examine the details. Look closely at the date, lettering, and mint mark. Any signs of doubling or unusual features could mean you've got an error coin. Step 4. Weigh it. A standard 1944 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. A steel one will be lighter, around 2.7 grams. Step 5. Consider grading. If your coin looks sharp and uncirculated, send it to PCGS or NGC for certification. A high grade can make a huge difference in value. Now we've reached the most exciting part of the video. The reason so many collectors dream of stumbling across an unassuming copper coin from the 1940s. The moment that turns a penny into a payday, because among all the 1944 Lincoln wheat pennies ever struck, one coin stood out. It had everything: an exceptionally rare minting error, brilliant uncirculated condition, and the perfect combination of history and scarcity. And when this coin hit the auction floor, collectors took notice. Bids came in from across the country, even from overseas. It became one of the most talked about pennies in modern coin collecting history, and the final price, that 1944 Lincoln wheat penny, struck in error on a leftover steel planchet, authenticated by top grading experts, and preserved in incredible condition, sold for a staggering $148,000. That's right, $148,000 for a coin that could have easily been lost in a drawer, tossed in a jar, or used to pay for a gumball, and who knows, maybe the next one is waiting in your pocket. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating piece of American history that fits right in your pocket, the 1947 Lincoln wheat penny. This humble 1-cent coin carries stories from post-war America and holds secrets that could turn a simple penny into a collector's treasure. If you thought pennies were just small change, think again. Stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you'll discover why a 1947 Lincoln wheat penny could be worth an astounding $155,000. The year 1947 was a pivotal moment in American history. World War II had just ended 2 years prior, and the nation was transitioning from wartime austerity to booming prosperity. The economy was growing, families were expanding, and the spirit of optimism was palpable. Amid this historic backdrop, the U.S. Mint was producing coins that are now timeless relics, and the 1947 Lincoln wheat penny is one of those remarkable artifacts. Let's start by exploring the design and symbolism of this coin. The obverse, or front side, features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. This portrait, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909 to commemorate Lincoln's centennial birth, became the longest-running coin design in U.S. history. Above Lincoln's head, you'll see the motto, "In God We Trust," reflecting the nation's values during turbulent times. To the left of Lincoln's bust, the word "Liberty" stands boldly, while the year, 1947, is prominently displayed to the right. A small but significant letter may also appear just beneath the date, either a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco, indicating the coin's mint of origin. If there's no letter, the coin was minted in Philadelphia, the oldest and most prolific mint in the United States. Turn the coin over, and you're greeted with the wheat reverse, a design that gives this penny its nickname. 2 stylized stalks of wheat frame the words, 1 cent, and United States of America, while the motto, E pluribus unum, arches across the top. This design was used from 1909 until 1958 and evokes the agricultural heartland of America, symbolizing prosperity and growth. Now, while many 1947 pennies were minted in vast quantities, not all are created equal. The difference in value comes down to a few key factors that any serious collector must understand. First is the mint mark. The 1947 pennies came from 3 main mints: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D, and San Francisco, S. Of these, the Denver and San Francisco mint pennies tend to be more sought after, especially in higher grades. The Philadelphia pennies are more common but can still reach impressive values if in pristine condition. Next, condition is king in coin collecting. A 1947 Lincoln wheat penny that's heavily circulated, worn, and scratched will likely only be worth its face value or slightly more. But coins preserved with their original luster, sharp details, and no signs of wear, especially those graded MS65, Mint State 65, or higher by professional grading services, can command premium prices, but that's not all. One of the most exciting aspects of collecting 1947 wheat pennies lies in the world of errors and varieties. These anomalies can transform a common penny into a rare and valuable collector's item. One of the most notable error types from this year includes double die varieties, where the coin's design elements appear double due to a misalignment during the minting process. This doubling can be visible on the date, the words "Liberty" or "In God We Trust." Such coins attract considerable attention and fetch higher prices. Another error to watch for is the off-center strike, where the coin's design is not perfectly centered on the metal blank, resulting in an incomplete or skewed image. Depending on the degree of off-centering, these coins can be incredibly rare and valuable. Additionally, repunched mint marks, RPM, can occur, especially on Denver and San Francisco pennies, where the mint mark itself was stamped multiple times with slight shifts. This subtle anomaly is prized by many collectors for its uniqueness. Some 1947 pennies might also show die cracks or die breaks, visible raised lines or irregularities caused by cracks in the minting die. Collectors often prize these errors because they add character and uniqueness to the coin. One other fascinating aspect is that the metal composition of the 1947 penny was primarily 95% copper, with the remainder being tin and zinc. This composition differs from the steel pennies issued during wartime in 1943, making the 1947 pennies more traditional copper sense. If you think you might have a 1947 wheat penny tucked away in your collection, here are some tips on how to check its potential value. Start by inspecting the date and mint mark under good lighting or a magnifying glass. Next, assess the coin's overall condition, looking for sharp details, luster, and absence of scratches or dents. If you notice anything unusual, like doubling or off-center strikes, take a photo and consider having it evaluated by a professional coin grader. One more interesting fact: 1947 pennies are often overlooked compared to their earlier or rarer counterparts, making them a hidden gem in many coin collections. Enthusiasts who understand the significance of this year can spot incredible value where others see just pennies. Now, to the question everyone's been waiting for: how much is a 1947 Lincoln wheat penny really worth? In average circulated condition, it might be worth only a few cents to a couple of dollars. In higher grades, especially MS65 or better, the value can jump significantly, sometimes into the hundreds or low thousands of dollars. But here's the kicker: when a 1947 wheat penny features a rare mint mark, exceptional condition, and unique minting error, it can transcend expectations. The absolute cream of the crop, verified by professional grading and authenticated by experts, can bring in an astonishing sum at auction. And that number? It's a staggering $155,000, yes, $155,000 for a single Lincoln wheat penny minted in 1947. A coin that may have once been used to buy a piece of candy or a newspaper now holds the power to change lives, captivate collectors, and connect us with the legacy of a nation rising from the shadows of war. So, next time you find yourself digging through a jar of pennies or scanning through an old coin collection, keep an eye out for that little copper coin from 1947. It might just be your golden ticket. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of America's most iconic pennies, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on more amazing coin stories and discoveries. Drop a comment below if you've got a 1947 Lincoln wheat penny story, or if you want us to explore any other fascinating coins. Happy collecting, and may your next penny be worth $155,000.